Ever feel that little voice in the back of your head telling you something's off? That nagging doubt you try to ignore? For Mark, that little voice became a roar he couldn't silence. Following it led him down a path that would shatter his world, only to rebuild it. Mark and Sarah had what everyone called the perfect marriage. They were high school sweethearts, the couple everyone looked up to. They had a beautiful home, 2 great kids, and a life that seemed straight out of a storybook. For 15 years, Mark believed he was the luckiest man alive. He adored Sarah. To him, she was not just his wife. She was his best friend, his confidant, his everything. But perfection is often just a carefully constructed illusion. It all started subtly. Few late nights at the office she never mentioned before, vague answers to simple questions. Her phone, once left casually on the counter, was now always in her pocket or face down. At first, Mark brushed it off. Life gets busy, right? People get stressed. He didn't want to be the suspicious, controlling husband. He trusted her, or at least he desperately wanted to. One evening, they were supposed to go to a dinner party at a friend's house. An hour before they were due to leave, Sarah got a text. She glanced at it, and a strange expression crossed her face, a flicker of panic, quickly masked. "Oh, honey," she said, her voice a little too bright. "That was my boss. There's an emergency at work. I have to go in. I am so sorry. You go ahead without me." Mark felt a cold knot form in his stomach. An emergency? On a Friday night it didn't feel right? What kind of emergency? He asked, trying to keep his tone casual. "Is everything okay?" Sarah was already grabbing her coat, avoiding his eyes. "It's just a server issue. Super technical and boring. Don't worry about it. I'll be late, so don't wait up." She gave him a quick, almost rehearsed peck on the cheek and was out the door before he could say another word. He stood there in the hallway, the silence of the house suddenly deafening. He went to the dinner party alone, making excuses for Sarah that felt like lies on his tongue. His friends were understanding, but he could feel their pitying glances. Throughout the evening, that cold knot in his stomach only tightened. He called her phone twice. The first time it rang and rang, then went to voicemail. The second time, an hour later, it was switched off. A server issue that required her to turn off her phone? The logic just wasn't adding up. The next morning, Sarah was her usual self, full of apologies and detailed stories about the server meltdown. She seemed so sincere, so convincing, that Mark almost believed her. He called himself paranoid. He told himself he was creating drama where there was none. He wanted to let it go, to restore the perfect picture of their life. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it was starting to grow roots. The turning point came a week later. Mark was cleaning out their shared car and found a receipt tucked into the side pocket of the passenger door. It was from a fancy restaurant downtown, a place they'd only been to for their anniversary. The date on the receipt was from last Friday night, the night of the work emergency. The bill was for 2 people, complete with 2 main courses and a bottle of expensive wine. His heart pounded in his chest. This was it. This was something tangible. It wasn't just a feeling anymore. His mind raced. He could confront her. He could scream. He could demand answers. But what if there was a logical explanation? What if she'd taken a client out and just forgot to mention it? He needed more than a receipt. He needed undeniable proof, if only to quiet the storm of accusations in his own head. He felt like he was betraying her by even thinking this way, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he was the one being betrayed. He decided to do something he never thought he'd do. He remembered Sarah mentioning a business trip to a conference in a city about 3 hours away. She was supposed to be gone for 2 days. He looked up the conference online. The dates matched. The hotel she said she was staying at was listed as the conference venue. Everything seemed to check out, but Mark's gut told him to dig deeper. On the day she was set to leave, he told her he had an early meeting and left the house before she did. But he didn't go to work. Instead, he parked his car down the street, his heart hammering against his ribs, watched as she loaded her suitcase into her car. He watched as she drove away, not in the direction of the highway that led to the conference city, but in the opposite direction, towards a part of their own town known for its upscale private residences. He followed her. His hands were slick with sweat on the steering wheel. Every rational part of his brain was screaming at him to turn back, to go home and forget he ever saw this. But he couldn't. He had to know the truth, no matter how much it hurt. He followed her for 20 minutes until she pulled into the driveway of a modern, expensive-looking house he'd never seen before. A man came out of the front door. He was smiling. He wasn't Sarah's boss. He was a complete stranger. Mark watched in frozen horror as the man took Sarah's suitcase, leaned in, and gave her a long, passionate kiss. A kiss that was not for a colleague, a kiss that left no room for doubt. They walked into the house together, hand in hand, and closed the door. The world went silent. The noise in Mark's head, the doubts, the fears, the questions had all just stopped. All that was left was a hollow, echoing emptiness. He sat in his car, staring at the closed door, for what felt like an eternity. He didn't feel anger, not yet. He just felt ... nothing. The storybook had been slammed shut. The perfect picture was torn to shreds. He drove home in a daze. The life he knew was over. The woman he had loved for half his life was a stranger. The betrayal was so absolute, it was almost surreal. That night when Sarah called, her voice cheerful and full of fake stories about the conference, he didn't confront her. He just listened, his heart breaking with every lie. He knew he had a choice. He could live in this lie, pretending for the sake of the kids, for the sake of appearances. Or he could face the devastating truth and start over. When Sarah returned 2 days later, all smiles and gifts for the kids, Mark was waiting. He didn't yell, he didn't scream, simply laid the restaurant receipt and a picture he had taken of her kissing the other man on the kitchen table. The color drained from her face. The mask fell, and for the first time in months, he saw the real Sarah, a person who was scared and guilty, and a complete stranger to him. The weeks that followed were the hardest of his life. There were tears, arguments, and painful conversations. But through it all, Mark found a strange sense of clarity. The doubt that had been poisoning him was gone, replaced by a painful but clean truth. He had trusted his gut, and it had led him to the truth. And the truth, as agonizing as it was, set him free. It wasn't an easy road. Divorce is never easy. But Mark focused on his kids, on his own well-being, and on rebuilding a life based on honesty. He learned that sometimes the hardest paths are the ones that lead to a better destination. He learned that ignoring your intuition is a form of self-betrayal, and that true strength is found in facing the truth, no matter how ugly. His story isn't just about heartbreak. It's about the courage to seek truth and the resilience to rebuild from the ashes. It's a reminder to all of us to trust that inner voice, because sometimes it's the only thing guiding you toward the light. Mark found his way out of the darkness, not by ignoring the shadows, but by walking straight through them. And on the other side, he found himself again. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more.